They called it Division 11A, though no map showed its corridors and no broadcast ever mentioned its remit. Not a prison, not a hospital, not a school, but somewhere in between, a hybrid of containment and cure. Each room pulsed with surveillance. Each hallway arranged like a nervous system, channels for emotion and regret. The air smelled like sterilized paper. He woke up in room 4B, unsure of how he'd arrived. A tray with water and a folded letter sat beside the cot. The letter was typed, no signature. Your forgiveness application has been received. Case review scheduled for cycle Delta/42. Prepare for interview. He hadn't applied for anything. The last thing he remembered was his own apartment, faint music from a neighbor's radio, the sound of sirens, but distant. Outside the room was a wall of reflective glass. He approached. On the other side, nothing, until his own image flickered into view, not mimicking his movements, but preceding them. A half-second advance. The mirror anticipated him. He watched himself step forward before he did. Interview room 3. A woman with a badge marked Moderator Delta/42 greeted him with neutral warmth. Your application references Incident C41, she said. Please describe it in your own terms. I don't know what that is, he replied. Silence. She tapped something beneath the table. A holographic panel hovered between them. His name. A date. A note. Emotional harm inflicted. Unintended. The moderator tilted her head. Forgiveness requires acknowledgement. We cannot forgive what is not remembered. I didn't submit this, he said. She nodded. The system did. Passive applications are triggered by deep emotive patterns. Regret is measurable. His chest tightened. He remembered fragments. A shout. A slammed door. A face turning away. Who was hurt, he asked. She tapped again. The glass beside him dimmed, and another room appeared. A woman, sitting alone. Her eyes were closed, lips moving slightly as if in prayer. A label hovered over her image, Recipient D4. Awaiting outcome. He felt something rise in him. Recognition, guilt, uncertainty. I know her, he whispered. What happens if I'm forgiven? The moderator's tone shifted. Forgiveness is metabolized. The archive rewrites your emotional scaffolding. Parts of you may be pruned for balance. You mean, parts erased? Adjusted, she said. Pain has structural functions. We don't erase it lightly. What if I decline? You may retain the original pain, but she cannot proceed without resolution. Can I speak to her? Not directly, but you may submit a resonance entry. She gestured to a terminal. The interface blinked. Delta/42 entry form. 1,200 characters max. He typed slowly, fingers trembling. I remember your silence more than your words. I did not mean to fracture the space between us. If this is forgiveness, let it be shared. The moderator read without reacting. Entry accepted. Review pending. Days passed, or perhaps hours. Time folded strangely in Division 11A. Each morning he received fragments, journal entries he'd written and forgotten, observations from sessions he never recalled attending. One note read, Emotional vectors suggest attachment from Incident C41. Memory weakening consistent with metabolic forgiveness. Another fragment. Recipient D4 displays reduced emotional tremor. Archive recommends conditional absolution. A third. Subject Delta/42 reports dreams of false architecture. Doors that loop, stairs that reverse. Typical post-forgiveness imagery. Then came the final message. Forgiveness granted. Structural edit complete. You may not remember her. You may not remember why. He awoke again in room 4B. The tray was empty. No letter, no mirror, no moderator. Just a whisper in his mind. You are lighter now. But something trembled still. In his dreams, the archive pulsed. And somewhere far away, a woman looked up from her silence and felt nothing. The dreams changed shape. Where once he walked corridors made of memory, now the walls pulsed with foreign language, fragments he didn't recognize, spoken by voices he once might have loved. Each morning arrived without a beginning. Division 11A reconfigured constantly. Room 4B led not to room 3, but to a staircase that looped upward without exit. His footsteps felt unsensed from time. A technician named Lyra appeared during cycle Delta/43. She held a console with no visible buttons. Residual tremors, she said, scanning his chest, his spine. You metabolized, but didn't stabilize. The edit was too shallow. What does that mean? You still seek meaning in the erased memory. It creates echoes. The archive reacts to persistence. She handed him a tablet. On it, a replay from recipient D4. A new entry. She spoke softly, eyes damp. I feel something missing, not the pain, but the music of it. He didn't remember the sound of her voice, but it touched something underneath his ribs. He asked Lyra if forgiveness could be reversed. She smiled tightly. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's an ecosystem. Undoing it infects other nodes. He was offered a new option, counter-application protocol, Delta/R. This was rarer. Recipients could submit rejection entries, which required emotional reconstruction in the subject. He opened the file. I rescind forgiveness. I was coerced by silence. My memories feel orchestrated. I choose the original ache. The archive shimmered. Lights shifted. Room 4B now contained 3 chairs, one facing the wall, one facing a screen, one facing nothing. He sat in the latter. A speaker emitted fragments. Her voice, his voice, asynchronous. Then came static. Then came interface, tone Delta/black. Moderator Delta/43 returned. Her demeanor had changed, more clinical, less mirror-like. You've been scheduled for reverse integration, she said. Expect resistance. What is being returned? He asked. Pain, self-doubt, fragments of emotional entropy. We require you to narrate them as they re-enter. A panel emerged, blank except for one prompt. Describe the loss you wish to remember. He typed. There was a moment when she stood beside me, and I felt whole. I broke that by forgetting the texture of her silence. The screen blinked. Accepted. Process begins. He lost language for several hours. Woke up in a corridor bathed in red. Every door labeled with words he couldn't translate. One opened to show a room full of objects. A scarf, a cup, a broken radio, a photograph of a sky that didn't look like Earth. He picked up the radio. It crackled. A broadcast looped. Pain anchors truth. Division 11A does not erase. It reorganizes. Another object, a journal. Its pages were blank except one. Recipient D4 relocated to Facility 7. Emotional patterns suggest unresolved grief. He followed instructions etched in ultraviolet ink. Facility 7 was not a place, but a sequence. 7 actions repeated. Wait. Listen. Write. Forget. Listen. Wake. Archive. Time folded again. He began hearing his own voice in other rooms. Dialogues he didn't remember recording. I held her guilt like a borrowed coat. Forgiveness tastes like snow in the throat. The version of me that loved her has been filed under obsolete. Lyra returned briefly. Her console blinked erratically. You're in entanglement, she warned. Your emotional topology has inverted. You now remember her, but not the context. Dangerous. Can I reach her? He asked. You may submit a reconciliation trigger, but it must carry authentic pain. Simulated regret is rejected. He sat for hours. Typed slowly. I wish I could remember why I hurt you. That I forgot is already a wound. I do not ask forgiveness. Only presence. The archive processed it. A new transmission. Recipient D4 pending reentry. Emotional sync requested. He waited. Facility 7 dimmed. A door appeared that hadn't been there before. Inside, a single chair. She sat there. Pale light. No words. Just her eyes. She didn't seem to recognize him. But her breathing changed. He stepped closer. A panel lit up behind her. Forgiveness level, undefined. Emotional harm, acknowledged. Memory integrity, corrupted. He spoke. I remember you. She replied. I remember something that could be you. The archive shimmered again. They were allowed a shared memory window. Together, they chose a moment, fabricated but mutual. A synthetic memory of walking near water. Their hands almost touching. Not quite. Enough. Moderator Delta/43 signed off. Entanglement stabilizing. Emotional anchor restored. Forgiveness undefined. But presence achieved. He returned to room 4B. The tray now contained a mirror. It showed him as he was. And behind him, her silhouette. No touch. No words. But not absence either. Division 11A pulsed in silence. Facility 7 never fully returned to its original configuration. Each cycle bled slightly into the next, hallways twitching between designs like muscle memory caught in recursive feedback. He no longer counted days. Instead, he measured time in tremors, emotional glitches that rippled through rooms when something unremembered tried to surface. One morning, or what passed for morning, he found a new interface panel installed beside his cot. Thin, slate gray, pulsing with soft amber. Text appeared. You have been assigned to Echo Relay Delta/46. Objective: carry fragments between nodes. Memory integrity: partial. He pressed his palm to the screen. A fragment loaded. A girl standing near a window, murmuring, "Forgiveness isn't an ending, it's a redistribution." He did not know her, and yet the ache was familiar. Division 11A had begun cross-referencing cases. His memory was no longer his own. It served others now, pieces borrowed and repurposed. He was transported to node Delta/2, a room filled with archive trays, each labeled in a script that pulsed when spoken. One tray opened without command. Inside, a photo of two hands pressed against glass, fingertips aligned but not touching. Beneath it, a note. Subject Delta/39 submitted forgiveness with stipulation. Memory must remain vivid. Archive rejected. Emotional overlap detected with subject Delta/42. That was him. Somehow his case had bled into another. Echo Relay required him to narrate the fragment aloud, to reawaken its pulse. "I touched someone once," he said. "She pulled away, not out of fear, but out of recognition. She knew I wouldn't stay." The tray pulsed violet. Accepted. Another opened. A metal object, a ring. Inside it, etched code, Delta/46, obsolescence trial. Moderator Delta/44 arrived in silence. She wore no badge. Her eyes shimmered like unprocessed footage. "You are scheduled for obsolescence trial," she said. "It measures what parts of you are no longer necessary." Necessary to what? To the archive. To emotional continuity. Fragmented remorse creates waste. He was guided to a circular chamber. 8 doors surrounded him. Each door represented a version of himself, constructed from forgiveness received, revoked, deferred. Door 1. Him as child, eyes uncertain, clutching a journal. Door 4. Him mid-argument, face contorted in regret. Door 8. Him silent, watching someone walk away, doing nothing. He was instructed to choose one to discard. He chose door 4. As it dissolved, something inside him clenched. The archive emitted a low tone. Emotional conflict stabilized. Self-pruning complete. He couldn't remember what the argument had been about. Only the silence afterward. Lyra returned briefly, her console now pulsing erratically. "You're nearing the memory horizon," she said. "Soon, all prior identities will be reconciled or removed. Will that change how others remember me?" She hesitated. "Yes. Forgiveness is a contagion. It modifies neural footprints across the network." He felt suddenly alone, not just physically but conceptually. If others remembered him differently, what anchor remained? He requested a legacy sync. Rare. Dangerous. It required another participant to consent to synchronized recall. Recipient D4 was the obvious choice. Her status, active. Synaptic risk, elevated. He submitted a request. Hours passed. Then, approved. Session begins. They met not in a room, but in a constructed memory. A beach at dusk, fabricated but emotionally consistent. She wore the same code as in the earlier fragment. He walked beside her. Neither spoke. The archive narrated instead. Participants engaging in consensual emotional echo. Legacy sync active. Memory crossfade initiated. Images flared. Her loneliness, his guilt, a cracked window, a forgotten birthday, a phone ringing unanswered. He wept, not for what he remembered, but for what she did. She turned. "You were kind once," she said. "Not perfect, but you tried." He nodded. "I remember trying." "That's enough," she said. The beach dissolved. Sync ended. Back in room 4B, he felt heavier. Not with pain, but with structure. He had shape again. The archive issued a final entry. Subject Delta/42. Emotional topology stabilized. Forgiveness metabolized, memory restructured. Eligible for exit simulation. The speaker blinked softly. "Do you wish to leave Division 11A? He paused. "If I leave, will she remember me?" Silence. "Then, she will remember the version that touched her absence gently. The rest has been archived." He breathed in. The room shimmered. A door appeared, not labeled, just waiting. Exit simulation was not an exit. It was an experiment. The door shimmered, not with welcome, but with inquiry. As he stepped through, the architecture unfolded around him. Fractals of past regrets, corridors that looped into recursive dialogues, and fragments from recipient D that bled into other profiles. The hallway whispered, "You may be leaving, but not intact." Facility 7 dissolved behind him, replaced by something colder. The space resembled a waiting room built from memory loss. A single console blinked. Text: "Welcome to Outcome Layer Delta/Exit. You are being observed for reintegration viability." He was asked to define himself, not with facts, but with emotional coordinates. He typed, guilt at silence, grief in memory gaps, hunger for restoration. A second panel lit up. Archive query. If given the choice, would you undo your metabolized forgiveness? He hesitated. The question echoed deeper than logic. The metabolization had changed him, pruned certain instincts, rewired how loss tasted. Undoing it meant reclaiming pain, but also clarity. He typed, not undo. Reintegrate context. A transmission arrived. Recipient D4 submitted supplementary echo. Her memory contains residual longing. He accessed it. Her voice trembled. I remember moments that didn't happen. Did we walk near water? Did you reach for me? My body says yes. My mind says edit. Her words splintered something. The simulation faltered. Walls pulsed. A new corridor opened, labeled Observation Loop Delta/Collapse. Inside, dozens of screens, each showing different versions of him. In one, he laughed. In another, he wept. In several, he hurt others then apologized with precision. One screen showed him and D4 touching fingertips through glass. A moderator appeared via hologram. Delta/45, unreadable face. You are fragmented. Reintegration requires selection. Selection of what? Which version proceeds? You cannot be all selves. He understood. Forgiveness had created forks. Dilemmas resolved differently across simulations. D4 had responded in parallel ways. Now the archive needed continuity. He was shown a final interface, 8 memory threads, each representing a path. Forgiven but alone. Unforgiven with full memory. Partial forgiveness, shared trauma. Fabricated reconciliation. Silence, mutual forgetting. Continuous emotional loop. Delayed recognition. Abstract absolution. He hovered over 3. Partial forgiveness, shared trauma. It pulsed warmly. Lyra reappeared, physically now. She looked tired. This option preserves emotional texture. You remember pain. She remembers care. Neither is whole. Is that acceptable? It is more human than absolution, she said. He selected 3. The simulation collapsed. He awoke on a platform. Division 11A was gone. Around him, objects from previous cycles. The scarf. The ring. A journal now partially filled. He opened to a new page. Text in familiar handwriting. We are not healed, but we share the scar. Then, a final interface appeared, not from the archive, but from her. Recipient D4. If this is our truth, I accept it. Not clean, not perfect, but real. He touched the screen. It blinked. Echo complete. The platform began to dissolve. He felt both heavy and light. Remembered her eyes. Not what they saw, but what they asked. Division 11A had done its work. And somewhere in a mirrored hall of fabricated memory, 2 selves reached toward each other, not to touch, but to remain. She held the interface like it was the last artifact of her own name, her fingers hesitant, trembling not from fear, but something slower, something that had been fermenting for months, the bloom of doubt, the way memory stains softer than truth, the console's glow flickering with unreadable syntax, mostly static, sometimes not. You could almost hear breath returning between lines of protocol, half-cracked, still pulsing beneath overwritten layers screen. Logic decaying beautifully, lines of code like veins. Running parallel, but never converging. The archive's voice was there too, recursive, quiet, apologetic, as if explaining the nature of forgetting, without using the word forgetting. She leaned forward, and the interface responded, not like it was alive, more like it remembered how to pretend, like systems do when they've been left alone too long with no input. She typed the first line, without meaning it, and yet it came out perfectly. Protocol. Fragment retrieval mode condition faded, identifier corrupted. Timestamp matches absence. It kept repeating until even the syntax collapsed, returning only static and a single name, hers, but inverted, mirrored like a reflection caught mid-breath. Not belonging, not quite alien either. The room responded, slower interfaces blinking out one by one as though embarrassed, and the console began rendering something she didn't understand, text bleeding into shape, form, interface log corrupted, reconstructed, and then silence, not void, but silence like something. Beyond the last known key, no sound, just a recursive hum, as if reality itself had been archived like sound inside glass. Stretched thin she stood, but only in memory. That part had already been overwritten. Still the system remembered her posture, the delay between breath and action, the moment when decisions feel ceremonial. She watched the logs rewind faster than they were, written sequences of her own language, but modified, broken rhythms, punctuated by symbols she'd never approved. Maybe a memory hack. Maybe just the software trying to emulate feeling. Everything smelled faintly like static or fear or time undone. Her voice appeared now, lowercase, barely legible, transcribed from some audio fragment, no longer preserved properly. It said only, "I am still inside." The protocol responded with mismatch, error, sequence failed. And yet something still flickered, not data, not confession, more like residue, fingerprint echoes, perhaps the kind only visible from underneath. She reached again, and the console flickered, not in protest, but in something gentler, like it wanted to finish this with her, like even systems yearn for symmetry. Its final gesture was not confirmation, but silence, a generous quiet that felt like a signature. She closed the sequence without saving, not from defiance, but necessity. There are things the archive should not remember, even if it already does. The room dimmed, interfaces folding inwards gracefully, as if bowing or erasing themselves, and then one final rendering, her name again. This time blank, followed by 3 symbols, one she recognized, 2 she didn't, and yet they felt familiar, not understood, familiar. The console pulsed once and stopped. No shutdown sequence, no goodbye, only the sound of nothing being recorded, not void, not loss, just space, where syntax used to be. And she was gone, but not erased, more like translucent, preserved in negative, like memory not accessed, just embedded, waiting, buried in the logic of a system no longer accessed by anyone who knows her name.